It's finally arrived, and it was a very active day. Day one of training camp for the Houston Texans. Your boy was on the scene. Let's talk about it here in the locker room. Number one source for Texans digital content. Shout out to everyone that was on SNL. We were about 500 deep there, and I think people are going to start staying up later for football season. So let's just jump right in to what went down with training camp. We'll go period for period. We'll talk about the money quotes, the interaction, what to watch, who balled out, who didn't, and a lot more as we discuss. So 8:30, Nick Casero spoke. He met with the media. Really kind of some interesting stuff from Nick Casero. I went into this wanting to ask him about the Higgins contract because I knew it was something that he probably had a lot of takes about and we'd heard a lot of smoke about. So I asked Casero about the contract, the quote, unprecedented contract for Higgins. And this is what Nick Casero had to say about that, about all of the attention that got. Here was the GM, Nick Casero. He did not disappoint me when it comes to the answer.
I would say it's really much ado about nothing. I think it was a kind of fabricated story. Like, let's just take a step back. And again, when you're reading about like this in the Wall Street Journal, you know, like everybody's got too much time on their hands. But just philosophically, when you look at, like, say, contracts in the second round specifically. So when you look at the top of the second round last year, I want to say like those contracts were like 92, 93% fully guaranteed, right? So let's just kind of fast forward, adjust for inflation a little bit. There's probably going to be some marginal increase. So let's just say the number is, 3 to 5%, right? So that small margin that's left, it's a difference of, it's not that much. I mean, you guys are all smart. You can do the math. So again, we're trying to get ahead and stay ahead on trends. Eventually it was probably going to get there anyways. So we just felt like that was the right thing for us to do. And I think what happened after that, honestly, it was a non-story that was made into a story, but I mean, everything kind of worked itself out. I think all of us in the league, myself included, have anticipated, at some point, probably the first 4 or 5, you're going to end up at that spot anyways. So why wait around? Why kind of bicker back and forth, go back and forth on the agents? Like, get to a resolution. I mean, I think people that kind of know me and that negotiate with me, I'm kind of a bottom line guy. So let's get to the bottom line. Let's not hem and haw. If we think everybody's comfortable with it, then we're going to go ahead and move forward. It didn't really impact Ursary, which is a part of the second round. I think that was more of some other factors that led to kind of the stall there. So we're always going to handle business however we see fit, try to do it logically, be pragmatic about it, try to do it in a responsible way. So again, the off season, there's not a lot of things to talk about. So when I start being around in the Wall Street Journal, this is kind of, it's a nothing deal. No, I'm not that smart, believe me. I didn't hear anything from anybody. So,
all right, so there you go. That's Casero talking about. Look, I know that's kind of he says he likes to get down to business. He says they know about me when they're negotiating with me and all that stuff. But here's the problem, man. I think he does have a reputation as kind of a sucker. Like this one, in this instance, like maybe there's not as much harm to it, but that he does have a reputation that, and I think there's other examples of contracts where a little bit lazy, but I do think the reputation and trying to be too proactive, I think you can kind of overthink that at times and not be in the moment. And I don't think a bickering back and forth is the worst thing when it comes to negotiating. But interesting quote from Nick Casero. We'll get into some stuff that he said about Jimmy Ward. The Jimmy Ward discussion was also something else that we kind of wanted to hear about. But I want to combine that with DeMeco. And when I do these practice updates, y'all have been doing these for, we're creeping up on 3 years. I typically like to go in chronological order of what my experience was like. It's basically like a point of view of what the experience was like. So you walked in at about 8:10. You go into the broadcast center, which is very tight and it's hot as hell in there. And then Nick Casero said that that was kind of the money quote for me. But he also took a shot, I think, at some past players. Now, some may say that I'm just searching for something, which is possible. But I think when Will Kunkel asks him, what do you like about these guys and what's right? And we know the kind of guys that left. I thought this was another interesting money quote from Nick Casero talking about the right kind of guys.
Yeah, football is ultimately about the players. So if you have players that walk in the building with that mentality and mindset, I would say, we're very purposeful with the type of people that we bring in the building, because in the end, like, they're the ones that are going to go out there and play. So you win with toughness, you win with physicality, you win with selflessness in this league. So who are the players that have those requisite qualities? We certainly prioritize that. You have to be able to play football. Like, I'm not going to put my head in the sand and be naive to the fact you have to be able to go out there and execute your job and play football. But you can find players who are good at football and have the other traits that we prioritize and covet. So we make a commitment to that. And at times, if you feel like you're going to step outside of that, that's okay. You just want to make sure that you have a reason for doing that.
Yeah, if you're going to step outside of it. And the reason would be, perhaps a really good left tackle, perhaps a veteran receiver when you need to figure out the receiver. And then you kind of move on from it and you go with something else. So I thought that was a good quote from Casero. I thought it was one of his most interesting ones. And that was what happened at 8:30. Then at 9 o'clock, the players, they were getting ready in the bubble, which is the inside facility. And we got a roster. At that point, we got our rosters. Sometimes you get them when you go in, but we got a roster. And there were some really interesting things on this, which I want to get to, which we've discussed earlier today on SNL. So we got the roster. And as you can see here, they have the signing of Arthur Mollett out of Memphis, the 10-year vet, which, by the way, an observation about him that I don't think too many people are talking about that I think can be connected to the Jimmy Ward dialogue that we'll get to in a second. But you look at this, the PUP list, and then you have the non-football injury, which means they got injured outside the facility. And right there, one of the number one things is Joe Mixon. And we were wondering about Joe Mixon and what Joe Mixon would or would not be ready to do. Adam Schefter says he'll be back soon, but he is on the non-football injury list, which kind of trims down the running back position. Not great, especially at 28. And hopefully it's not something that lingers, but a position that's already pretty thin, you get Joe Mixon on the non-football injury list. Not good. Now, what's even worse is Dameon Pierce. Like, Dameon Pierce cannot get out of his own way and stay healthy. I don't know what is going on there with Dameon Pierce, but Dameon Pierce, he's on this list. DeMeco Autry, he's 35 years old. How patient are they going to be with him? Barnett, no idea what's up with him. Trent Brown was apparently cleared for football activity. I don't know how that works with him being on the PUP list, but cleared for football activity. Maybe he can run around. That was per Aaron Wilson. Tank Dell, don't expect to see him this season. Fadakasi had trouble staying healthy last year. He's on the list. Heinisch had trouble staying healthy last year. He's on the list. JJ Taylor, I think that's probably a little bit more serious than we're really talking about, which we're not really talking about JJ Taylor that much. And then Jimmy Ward right there. It's been a problem. So you look at this list, the thing that sticks out is these guys had trouble staying healthy last year, and here they are starting out on the list. And I'm not even talking about guys who had serious injuries like Trent Brown or Jimmy Ward, or Tank Dell, but guys like Foley Fadakasi, Kurt Heinisch, Dameon Pierce, you thought, healthy, maybe they'll be able to put their better foot forward this year. They start out on that list. So there you go. This can change very quickly. A lot of times they want to ramp guys up. We got 4 practices in 4 days, including tomorrow. And everyone in here, be sure to like the video. like the damn video, as I often say. But we'll see what it looks like next week. But that's troubling to see some of the guys who had trouble staying healthy last year on that list. HDAV Traveler is in the super chat.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
What's up, HD? My friend, happy football season to you, mi amigo. So then after we look at this pup list and the injuries and stuff, then we go to the actual practice viewing. And this is where we go in depth in here like no one else does. We will go through each period and I will give observations on everything that went down. We'll go from the stretching line to the walkthrough. Every single period that they put on the scoreboard, we will go through and react to. And we start with the walkthrough. There was a walkthrough. The first drill or the first period was the walkthrough. And the thing that stuck out here was, much like the first time that they had an off-season activity, the thing that we were watching the most was who's going to be on the starting offensive line. And Andrews was the surprise of all surprises. He was the first team center for the majority of that portion, the offseason. And now Jake Andrews is second team, and you have a new center and you have a new right tackle. Your new right tackle with the first team is Ariante Ursary, and your new center is Jared Patterson. New/old center, I should say, because he's got a lot of familiarity with CJ Stroud. So that was the first offensive line you saw left to right. You had Robinson, which we expected. Tomlinson, which we expected. Patterson, which we maybe expected in the first part of the offseason, but now he's back there. And then you had Titus Howard and you had Ariante Ursary. So that was what the first offensive line looked like. The second offensive line was where it got a little bit even more interesting with the walkthrough. Because with the second offensive line, you had Zach Thomas at left tackle. He's number 78. Then you had number 72, who is or not 72. Then you had Jalen Thomas, who is number 72. They have two number 72s right now, which is kind of confusing. But you had Jalen Thomas. Then you had Andrews. Then you had Ed Ingram from the Minnesota Vikings. And then Blake Fisher was your backup right tackle. So Ariante Ursary there at right tackle. One of the observations that I had during the walkthrough is Ariante Ursary just looks more like a good right tackle than Blake Fisher. That might not mean a damn thing, but when it comes to just like the visual, because we really haven't gotten into like the intense parts of practice, like as far as just like if you were just judging someone by the way they look lining up, Ariante Ursary just looks like a much more impressive NFL offensive lineman than Blake Fisher. And quite frankly, Blake Fisher got his ass kicked today a number of times in practice. I'm sure there's some sort of reps that there's reps and there's some good tape that they like. But I'll be honest, like as soon as someone gets punked on the offensive line, it's easy for a jackass like me sitting on the side field to sit there and say, man, that dude got his ass whooped because I'm not having to block Will Anderson, Daniil Hunter, although he did get kind of punked by Solomon Byrd too. But Blake Fisher had a very bad day today. And Ariante Ursary, there weren't as many noticeable moments, at least in pass pro, in that area. The run blocking was non-existent. I don't think any of the running backs got loose on the ground. We're not really in pads yet, but as far as the walkthrough obs, the new starting offensive line, Ursery was the starter, and Blake Fisher had a really, really bad day. I don't think there's any getting around it. It was a bad day. Also in walkthrough, we did get a little Jakob Johnson. And I know that some of you might read it and say Jacob Johnson. I got corrected by this. He's a German. Jakob Johnson, who, by the way, that's a big son of a bitch, that Jakob Johnson. Fullbacks are always big. This dude's tall. He is 6'3" in every bit of 6'3". He's 255 pounds. They got him on special teams. He actually had, and we'll get to team 2. He actually had a nice catch on the sidelines. And if y'all listen to this during offseason activities, I said he kind of seems like a little bit better receiver than he may get credit for. Jakob Johnson, they had him out there a little bit, playing a little bit of fullback. Other thing that kind of sticks out, and I don't know if this is a sign of just a bad backfield, but British Brooks is going to get a real opportunity at running back. With the absence of Pierce and the absence of Mixon, British Brooks is like a pretty good combination of somewhat quick and a pretty big back. Last year, they moved him to fullback. He's not going to be a fullback in this. If he's going to make this team, it's going to be at running back. And I would bet you that in like preseason game 1 and preseason game 3, like we see like 15, 20 carries for British Brooks. He's going to get a lot of opportunity at running back. None of the running backs look good today, but British Brooks does kind of stick out, and it is going to be an opportunity for British Brooks to be a running back. The other news, and this is something that we kind of saw, this is kind of a pullover from the earlier offseason activities. While a couple of things did change on the offensive line, the one thing that stayed a constant is Juice Scruggs, up until the end of practice, pretty clearly a third stringer. He was doing a lot of scout team, and we really didn't see very much from Juice Scruggs until the end of practice, which we'll get to a little bit later. Then we go to the stretching, and there's not really much going on in stretching, but I did have an observation when the team was stretching. And that's that it is a full go at wide receiver right now. There's no one sitting on the side. Like, you got running backs sitting on the side. You got defensive linemen sitting on the side. You got a lot of guys that aren't ready to go. Every single wide receiver trying to make this football team is there. And Braxton Berrios had one of the better days of anyone. Braxton Berrios probably had, I'll go ahead and say it, he was the dog of the day. We always have the dog of the day on practice. Today's dog of the day, I'm a dog, I'm a dog, I'm a dog, I'm a dog. Braxton Berrios. He had a successful day. Now you can say Ursery had a successful day because Blake Fisher had a bad day, and you're kind of competing for the same spot. But Braxton Berrios is kind of fighting on the back end to make this squad. And he was out there. He ended practice with one of the best receiving plays of the day, and he looked the most natural returning punts during special teams. And you had Noel muff a punt off the leg of Tommy Townsend. So Braxton Berrios, if you're going to make this team, you're probably going to have to look better than anyone returning punts. He did that. You're also probably going to have to look pretty serviceable at wide receiver because they're not getting rid of Noel and they're not getting rid of Christian Kirk. He did that. So the dog of the day, kind of a surprising one, Braxton Berrios. He had a very, very, very good first day. So shout out to Braxton Berrios, but that was just kind of the observation early on is, okay, we got full wide receivers out there, and the wide receivers are right by us when they're getting ready. So that was something interesting. Then we went to Indy, not Indianapolis, but we went to Indy as the next period. And the biggest takeaway from Indy, little independent, was Jalen Petrie had some company. I talk about the Jalen Petrie practice, which kind of began a couple of years ago. where Jalen Petrie started kind of practicing different. Like the safeties are on this side of the field, the corners are on that side of the field, and then Jalen Petrie's just like in his own section. Linebackers are down here. Jalen Petrie was doing that, and he actually had some company in the form of, it was not Jalen Reed, it was Arthur Maulet, the guy that we were talking about. And I think this is important because he's been in the league 10 years, which means he obviously possesses some sort of skill. He's a slot guy, and they got him doing the Petrie practice. So if he's going to be able to do that, and none of these other corners are really good. No corner had like a really, really good day. There weren't really any bad days. But if Arthur Maulet's going to be one of the kind of like the Petrie guys, I think he might be a guy that has a really decent chance at making this ball club. So that was something that was worth observing. British Brooks in like just drills where no one's touching him. I keep bringing up this name. He just looks more impressive than some of the other backs. So British Brooks kind of stuck out. And then you saw the slot receivers. The slot receivers are very, very fun to watch. And they kind of took over practice at the end. So that was something to keep an eye on. And then it got real weird because you're kind of rusty. Practice is just now starting. So you don't really have your head on as good of a swivel as you usually do. And there's a new media section, which is kind of, it's like between field 1 and field 2. And field 3, for those of you that have been out there, is basically the one where the stands are. That's just how I number it. And you can sit between field 1 and field 2. You're you're right in the sun. And me and Stutz, we sat there as long as we could. That's where we observed practice. It was a good spot. And when we talked about the previously mentioned PUP list, there was no Christian Harris. So you automatically noticed that the linebackers were in front of us. So I was like, okay, well, damn, I've been looking at these receivers, seeing what's popping. I've been looking at the offensive line to see who's lining up. Talking about the Petrie practice. Let's see how Christian Harris is looking, because he's not on the PUP list. They say that he's ready to go. And I look up and I'll be damned. Christian Harris is not out there. And I go up to Jonathan Alexandro of the Chronicle. I say, "What's up with Harris?" He goes, What do you mean? What do you mean?" Like Jonathan Alexander. What do you mean? I'm like, "Dude, he's not out there." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Dude, look, he's not out there." And then I go back over to Stutz, and I'm like, "Stutz, where's Christian Harris?" He's like, I'm like, "Have you seen him?" He's like, "I have not laid eyes on Christian Harris." And I'm sitting there like, damn, did he start practicing and then like limp off the field or something? Like, is this like deja vu all over again? But I guess he just wasn't practicing even though he's on PUP. He wasn't on the side or anything like that. So I would assume, like, if Christian Harris doesn't practice in the next 3 days, I think we need to get worried. I'm not selling my penny stock. I'm still buying the Christian Harris stock. But if in the next 3 days we don't see number 48 on the football field, then I think we need to start really just wondering what the hell's going on. So let's keep a close eye on that. But it was really interesting to see that all this anticipation of is he or isn't he going to practice, I just started following other stuff, and then I just thought I would kind of work my way over to seeing Christian Harris, and I'll be damned, as much as things change, the more they stay the same, because Christian Harris was not out there. Now, I will say this, though. EJ Speed Insurance, not to be confused with Progressive, Geico, Aflac, any of the other insurance companies. EJ Speed Insurance, when you have something that breaks down a lot, you need insurance. Pretty nice out there on the field. He's tall, too. That's a 6'3" dude too. So EJ was out there. He was doing his thing. Little linebacker, kind of half-ass coverage type of thing. Jamal Hill did have an interception. I know we have like some Jamal Hill truthers to end it, but it was just kind of like a half-ass, like off the scout teamer's hands type of thing. But EJ Speed Insurance was on display, but Christian Harris not on pup, but not on the practice field. It is the locker room. Number one source, Texans digital content. We'll be back out there tomorrow morning. SNL at 4:00. More videos as well. We're not done. Not by a long shot. We still got like 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 4 periods to go. And we got to hear from DeMeco and Casero on Jimmy Ward, which was what we wanted to hear the most. So stay up, stay fit, like the damn video. But first, I want to tell you about BobTech. Shout out to BobTech. Got some people who actually looked at the items and they said, damn, I could use some of that stuff around the house. They don't just do safety supplies for companies. I mean, that's what they specialize in, and that's what Bobby's been doing for 45 years in the industry. And they are locally owned and operated. They will deliver to you without any charge. They got the gloves, the FR coveralls, the protective clothing, the spill control supplies, trucking, anything. If you work in the truck, if you work on the chemical plant, maritime, all that, they got you covered. And they're going to give you the best price, and they're going to look out for your safety, because it's not something that you should take lightly. Hell, Christian Harris would have called BobTech. He might have played last year. We might be talking about Christian Harris and getting a contract extension. He didn't do it. Don't make that mistake either. Get it, whether it's around the house or out there on the dock or on the truck, all that. Give him a call, give him a text, 24/7, 409-744-8225. I don't know what time Bobby goes to bed, but get that phone buzzing. Appreciate BobTech for sponsoring this segment and helping us get out to West Virginia. So then we're going to do some special teams. So then we got some special teams going on, and we're doing punt return, and it's a slot party. It's a slot party because all of your slot receivers are returning punts. Jalen Knoll, Braxton Berrios, and Captain Kirk.
Captain Kirk has arrived. I repeat, Captain Kirk has arrived.
And Berrios looked the best. He looked the most fluid. Tommy Townsend, some shanks, but I don't think he's really a practice player. I think he's got a little bit of that Allen Iverson in him.
We're in here talking about practice.
But Braxton Berrios, the best of that. As far as coverage, speed looks like he's going to be a first-team special teams guy. And then you had the usual suspects on coverage, the MJ Stewarts, the Ross, all that. So the special teams, not really a ton changed. And you had the slots back there returning punts. Let's get to the offensive side of the rock. The first team period of the season was awful. It was awful. So you had the same offensive line that we started with from left to right. You had Robinson, Tomlinson, Patterson, Howard, and Ursery. First and 10, Nick Chubb up the middle, nada. Second down, nada. This was a Danielle Hunter stuff. Then another run was blown up. MJ Stewart, by the way, getting some first-team safety reps. CJ Gardner-Johnson, clearly the first-team safety, but he was kind of on the side. Then you had Davis Mills come in. Jawar Jordan stuffed up the middle. Then you had an over-the-head pass kind of to Higgins. Then Woody Marks, nothing. Slovis comes in. He misses Wayne across the middle, kind of the exact same thing that Mills did. Then they hand the ball to British Brooks, nothing. And then Knoll catches a pass across the middle from the one-leg rook, Mr. Mertz, by way of Wisconsin and Florida. So team one, Big win for the defense. No pads on, but really no penetration at all. And the defense just completely dominates. So then we go back to the special teams. Same guys back there fielding punts. I don't even think Fairbairn had his cleats on today. You had a couple of Townsend Shanks. CJ Gardner Johnson was on the side. He was actually like juggling tennis balls. He's pretty good at it. He's doing like 4 at a time, like back and forth, like juggling. And he said he wanted to do that in pregame. So that's kind of his thing. He wants no part of special teams. And once special teams happens, he's nowhere near it. So not happening. Not even given the look or anything. Then you had Johnson doing his thing on the side, working as a personal protector, but nothing really much on that. And this is a light day. It's day 1, so it's a little bit light. Then we go to the final team period. And we'll get to the money quotes. First, let's go to the super chat with the late night crew. Hey, we're staying up late again. You know I'm always staying up late, but football fans are up.
Captain Kirk has arrived. I repeat, Captain Kirk has arrived.
Swarm.
Jacob Hyatt says your favorite topic, John Mechie update. This was the first time that John Mechie didn't even have a catch in practice, I don't think. I mean, he was basically doing scout teams, special teams. Like this, usually there's if John Mechie has a 5-yard catch in practice, it gets gassed up. I don't even think he had a catch today. If he did, I missed it. And I was watching pretty closely. So John Mechie's not making this team, especially if Berrios is going to have good days. It's one thing for Noel or Kirk to do their thing, but if Berrios is going to have days, I mean, not good. Even Bob Tack liked the video. Yes, he did, which y'all should too. We're about 200 deep right now. Be sure to like the video. Good call by 320. Then we go to the final team period. And oh my gosh, the offense showed a little bit of a pulse. We talk about Nick Caley and we talk about slots and tight ends, and he likes tight ends, and multiple slots is something that I've spoken on quite heavily this offseason. And team 2, little different offensive line. Little different offensive line. So we have a Juice Scruggs sighting. How about that? Juice Scruggs getting a rep. He's your starting left guard. Ursery's your starting left tackle. Andrews is your starting center. Titus Howard's still at right guard. And then Blake Fisher's at left tackle. And it wasn't pretty for Blake Fisher. But you got a little Juice Scruggs sighting. You can tell he's a little bit excited. He was kind of high-fiving his teammates. The second offensive line that would line up, Cam Robinson back at starting left tackle. Tomlinson, Patterson. So the 3 starters from the first one. And then you got Ingram and Deculus. This one started out with a nice swing pass to Brevin Jordan. Brevin Jordan looked about as excited as anyone running onto the field. Now, I've said I don't know that Brevin Jordan is a 100% lock to make this team, but Brevin Jordan did very well for himself today. And he was on the field. You know, we talked about the guys that were banged up last year and they started out on the field. Off the field, Brevin Jordan was on the field. So they found Brevin Jordan. Then they found Dalton Schultz, they being CJ Stroud. And then Blake Fisher just got completely punked by Will Anderson. Absolutely punked. And pushed back into the backfield. Almost treated him like a blocking sled. So there's that. It happens. So it's Will Anderson. Just not a good day for Blake Fisher. Then we go to Davis Mills time. And this was a little shorter practice, not as many team periods. There was a quick pass in the slot to Jalen Knoll, his second catch of team. Then a quick out to Higgins, probably about 3-4 yards, nothing special. And then the longest pass of the day to Jared Wayne, who a lot of you are very mean to because of the Tank Dell thing, but Jared Wayne with a nice little catch along the sidelines. And then we finished with Mertz, no Slovis. You had a sack by Solomon Byrd versus Blake Fisher, who moved over to the right side. Solomon Byrd getting some of that Blake Fisher beat down. Johnson with a nice grab out of the backfield. I'm telling you, he's a better receiver than he probably gets credit for. And then Berrios ends it with a nice catch out of the slot, and practice is over. So it's a quicker practice, a little bit lighter. It intensifies throughout the week, and we got 3 straight, which means we'll be breaking these down 3 straight days. I will be live Saturday night, and we'll be live on SNL to break it down with the practice. But that's how we ended it right there. Braxton Berrios, the baller of the day. So there you go. Who was the loser of the day? Some would say, is it Blake Fisher? No, the loser of the day was my co-host on SNL, is Cody Stutes. I don't know why he shaved his mustache. I think the good news is that it'll grow back quickly. But what a terrible decision this was. Like, look at this. This was him today. Why did he do this? And you can tell he's looking at himself like, man, what was I thinking? I had a good thing going there. Now look at him. And you know who he looks like? Because everybody was throwing out like names of who he looks like. He looks like the damn fudge bar coach from Bluebell, that creepy ass coach that you see in the aisle, the fudge bar coach. Looks like he's got to register to live somewhere. Look at that. Tell me that ain't him. Stutes, fudge bar coach. Get the mustache back, man. Cody Stutes is the loser of the day. That's the practice update. So after practice, Nick Casero had to say about the Jimmy Ward situation. And then we'll hear DeMeco, who has a very, very strong history with him. Let's start with Nick, though.
It's going to take care of itself. We've been in contact with the league. We'll work with the league. We'll be compliant on our end. We'll do the best we can. So I think it's day to day, but kind of let that process kind of take care of itself, and whatever the outcome is, we'll handle it accordingly.
Whatever the outcome is. So that makes it seem like they're just going to wait to see what the league is going to do. And the guy that I really wanted to hear about this, and this is a guy who has a strong bond with Jimmy Ward, was DeMeco Ryans. And this is what DeMeco Ryans had to say about the situation.
With Jimmy, it's unfortunate anytime something like that comes out in the news and that happens to one of your players. Jimmy's a guy that I've known the longest since I first started in the NFL. I've worked with Jimmy and know the type of guy that he is, and we'll just let the legal situation play itself out there.
Yeah, so they're going to play it out. They're going to ride this out and see what happens with Jimmy Ward. And I think it's very possible that Jimmy Ward is on this football team. And I don't think that's necessarily the worst thing that could happen, is having him as a depth piece. But they're going to let it play out. The bottom line is he was not healthy. So it might not really even matter for a while, because he was going to probably miss some time. We'll get the CJ stuff up. We'll pull it up from the site. Let's see if we can get CJ on the control. I don't want to not pay off the TV.
You said you wanted to control.
Here we go.
What did you control?
My attitude, my play, my communication.
Control that aren't necessarily surrounding.
As in,
just you said you wanted to control what you could control. What did you control this year?
my attitude, my play, my communication. I think those are some things just I can control. So I'll try to do that as best as I can.
Did you not like the way they were done last year?
No, I did. I think we won some games and went to the playoffs and did some great things. So yeah, everybody's different personalities, different people. So you got to adjust on what people like. And for me, my job is being a servant. So trying to serve others. So yeah.
And I think that CJ is probably in a much different spot now than he was last year. He was miserable at times. Like, he was talking about not having fun. He looked doom and gloom. But I do think that it sometimes if you're just dealt a bad card, it's just about how you deal with it. It doesn't mean that there's any scenario where you're going to reach the ultimate goal. And sometimes, like, when you're a quarterback, you're at the mercy of your surroundings. And CJ Stroud is in a situation now where we don't know how good his offensive line is going to be. We don't know how good his receivers are going to be. And I think it's going to be a scenario where he's just going to have to control what he can control. And I think the things that he mentioned are good. Mr. Heisenberg said there was nothing wrong with that question, Lando. No, I know that. And I don't care if CJ gets upset about a question, it's fine. I'm telling you, the angle that I was recording, you can see right there, Greg Bailey is holding open the sun. And I'm like this close to CJ Stroud. So I'm basically like 2 feet on him. It's not the natural like space because there are a lot of people bunched in and the sun is just glaring in your face. So it was not very comfortable. I think I didn't sweat like Patrick Ewing or Kevin Garnett, but I had a nice sweat going. I had a nice gliss going. But yeah, that was what that was. I think that was, and I thought that was a good answer from CJ Stroud. We also kind of had DeMeco Ryans. I thought he kind of took some shots at Bobby Slowick by saying what Nick Caley was. And quite frankly, I think we saw what Bobby Slowick did last year. We saw the way in which Bobby Slowick called games. And it was square peg, round hole. It was kind of like a plug and play. And you were basically trying to do what San Francisco did without having San Francisco personnel. I thought it was a pretty decent yet necessary shot at Bobby Slowick. I do feel bad though, because Bobby Slowick's not really much of a trash talker, but I think they're pleased that he's gone. I think there was a little bit more frustration than they perhaps would like to mention. We also heard from Nico Collins. Nico Collins isn't going to say much. He's just going to handle his business. And Will Anderson, always giddy. I asked him who was stronger between Danielle Hunter and Myles Garrett. He wouldn't answer that. So damn shame there. But it's all good. It's all awesome when it comes to this Texan stuff. We got 4 more practices, 3 more practices this week, and then an off day on Sunday. And then after that, West Virginia the week after that. I'll leave for West Virginia at 5 a.m. on Sunday. And then we'll just ride this thing out. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Neon says that Will Anderson Jr. loves football. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. There's no doubt about that. Hope it's not the B.O.B. offense. It definitely is elements of that. But it's not the Bobby Slowick offense, which seems to be all that they really care about. Appreciate y'all for rolling through. We're about 200 deep tonight, so business is kind of picking up. About 500 deep on SNL, which you can watch Monday through Friday at 4 o'clock. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like. Be sure to ride along. And be sure to always remember when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Thanks for coming through.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Ayy. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize, every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localize every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not too. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up, we number 1. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room.